Oh, the emails.
Great, all right. Good afternoon and welcome to the July 14th, 2025 meeting of the Brookline School Committee. We have an abbreviated agenda. Number one is our consent agenda. Is there a motion to move the consent agenda? Anyway, Andy moves a second, Mariah second. Any discussion? Andy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bob, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Sarah? Yes. Carolyn? Yes. Jesse?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
And I vote as well. Number two, administrative business, acceptance of grants and gifts. Mariah, do you want to walk us through these?
Sure. So finance reviewed 2A, 2B was pulled, 2C, 2D, 2E was pulled, 2F and 2G, 2H was also
I'm
pulled.
sorry, can you go slightly
Yeah,
slower?
we did not do 2B, 2E or 2H.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we reviewed the rest of them Friday morning. There were no questions, I believe, except for on the 2A genocide grant.
Right.
And the questions were about whether we were eligible. So I have the questions and answers here. Whether we were eligible for the funding, whether the funding was based on the number of students participating or the size of the LEA. The answer was it was based on the size of the LEA. And either way, we applied for 70, they applied for 70,000, but we're only awarded 29,000 anyway.
We were,
They applied for 70,000, but we're only awarded 29,000 anyway. So even though we applied for the maximum category, they were given a reduced amount in either case.
oh,
The second question was whether there were substitutes needed for this work, and the answer was no, there are no substitutes required. We would have to be explicit in the grant application if substitutes were required. Then there was a question about curriculum development. It'll look different in different grades. There will not be large scale development in all grades. The largest focus will be in grade 10. I think that and the other question about curriculum vetting could be taken up in the future at a curriculum finance subcommittee. And then the last question about why Facing History and Ourselves was chosen as the vendor. And the answer was this organization was included. Is that a quacking? Okay, the organization was included this year because, as Mariah noted in the video, we are concluding a multi-year series of PD sessions with them in connection with two prior genocide education grants. This work with Facing History and Ourselves this year will be with our 10th grade teachers. Facing History is also a DESE approved PD provider for this grant. So those are the responses to 2A. So I will make a motion to accept all of the grants that were reviewed by finance.
just one other comment about that. I think when I asked the question at the finance meeting, it was also to potentially be able to see the curriculum as compared to just have it as a future curriculum subcommittee meeting, which we don't know when that'll be. Could be docketed mid-year or something, whereas the work will start perhaps in fall.
This topic was mentioned in connection with curriculum development as part of this grant. No curriculum vetting process was ever established by Dr. Fortuna or OTL. So I don't know that there is a curriculum vetting process. That was the note back.
Do you mind reading that again? Whatever portion you just read?
This topic relating to curriculum vetting process, which is I think what you were referring to.
Oh,
This topic was mentioned in connection with curriculum development as part of this grant. No curriculum vetting process was ever established by Dr. Fortuna or OTL as far as we know.
right. So in the curriculum subcommittee meeting, downstairs, the date might have been March-ish or something. Susan.
Let me add one thing on. We again are happy to come to the curriculum subcommittee this year. They said finance, but that really would be the place for it.
Yeah, that's
And in future years to provide all needed information. So that's the,
right.
yes.
Because I had asked Greg Porter at that time for a review of that portion of the curriculum. And we ran out of time that day, as most of the subcommittee curriculum meetings tended to be. So we didn't have time to discuss it then, but he did agree to come to another one and be able to provide us that information.
and that
I don't see more vetting as much as being exposed to it, to see it.
I remain
Oh, you would-
acknowledging as to that opinion.
She was
I'm just reading the email.
And that email is from Greg, Mariah?
That was from Greg on behalf of Tim and Jen.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to approve the, you can ask, but I want a second before we ask.
I'll second.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I don't know what this is. Two sentences, can you tell me what it is?
The genocide education
Yeah, what-
grant. They get money for genocide education from the state. We got a whole information packet about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. It's in our packets for today.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yes, so you have it somewhere in your.
It's to fulfill
And
state law
benefit.
that was passed that
Okay.
provides for grants for this.
A while ago.
Yeah. Every school district shall,
It's new,
Uh-huh.
it's a new requirement, so they must be doing their best to satisfy it.
but Betsy, one question I have is the cover page says 70,000.
I know.
Okay.
Right, yes,
Yeah. I don't know what to say, but I thought the same thing when I saw that message.
but it was definitely, it was, you're certain that it was 29,000.
Yeah, that's what he said, but I think this is some of my frustration, I'll just park in general, which is that, when there's, like, it's important to know what was awarded as opposed to what was applied, because we're approving awards, not, we're approving applications, but then we're also
Mhm.
approving awards, and when they're meaningfully different, we really need to know what's different, so. Anyways.
So
a question. Oh, sorry, Donna.
I was just going back to the fact that 29,000 was awarded. So do we know which portion of the grant that we reviewed that 29,000 is going to? Because from what I remember, it was split into three.
When grants are awarded at less than full funding, as the case here, the grant leads, Jen and I, work with the grant manager to redefine the budget spends based on priority areas and available funding. We don't have that information in front
From
of us.
reading the actual response, though, it wasn't clear. The 29's in there as a light item. It doesn't show it as the all total. I read
That's
it.
not what was presented to us, did not
Right.
imply the 29. That's only in the email we
Oh, it's
received
only in
earlier
the-
today.
Oh,
So it's,
oh, okay.
yeah, anyway, it would be helpful. I know Betsy, you got the packet from Donna or whoever gave it to you, so.
And sorry, I missed this. The email you're reading, is that from Greg?
Yeah, on their behalf.
So Greg and Jen will together develop whatever this is.
A spending plan for this grant, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I have I have a question about another item unless something else. Okay, and this might be a question for Andy and Val, who I think are now the BEF liaisons. So I'm slightly confused. If anybody can give any clarity, we have an email exchange between the BEF and Ashley O'Sullivan staff. So basically saying, so first of all, it's not clear to me if the system-wide grants and collaborative grants, is that this, I think that
no,
those are different.
yes, as far as we know.
It's just a system-wide that are up in the air.
Mhm.
We can revisit the system-wide when you have more information. So we're approving, if my understanding is we're approving 3 things that are on this list. But is your understanding, Val or Andy, that those things might not actually happen? Like when the
No,
DEF is
so-
talking about things being in flux.
So that's not what's on this list. What you see on this detailed spreadsheet
Yeah.
is all of essentially let's say the teacher individual application or small group applications.
Oh, so the
Yeah.
C5, 8, and 9, they call collaborative, which is different.
So that might be, but like they're small group activities. So maybe I'm getting confused on the nomenclature, but these are the
Okay.
only ones we are being asked to approve. And specifically within that, if you look, the only dollars that are referenced are
Yeah.
the last 2 columns, which match what you see on this, what we got originally, that
Okay.
very short page. And those are the monies that the
Okay.
district pays and then is reimbursed for.
So is it our understanding that the BEF is still considering what they want to do in terms of system-wide? Do they have applications pending from staff? Like, what's sort of the status of that and what's the expectation of what we're gonna see?
where system-wide are
Grants for the
typically
district. Have you heard anything,
Right.
Jenny?
that like fifth floor generated.
The only thing I heard from Kim was that they were waiting for someone to be an OTL, but there's nobody in OTL
Okay.
to talk to about it.
Okay. That makes sense.
And
So
now that we
once that-
do have somebody in place,
And then they'll work on what they want to do.
Yeah.
And so then then there's also sort of like the communication question of like, at what point. Where the BEF is not part of the school department, at what point then does the school committee get to hear what it is that staff are requesting funding for? Mariah, does it go
Finance.
the same kind of
Yeah.
process?
Yes.
Like we would see the application, or do we only, my sense is we're only hearing after things have been approved.
This was the most challenging one and it seems to sort of be working out. I think that we're supposed to see the district ones
Mhm.
before the fact.
Okay,
So
okay,
that was the split of like the confusion last year was
okay,
for both. Yeah, was the individual applications versus the district
Sure.
applications. I believe we saw the district applications last year in advance. I can't remember. But we have been talking about it.
okay.
Yeah.
We, meaning,
Me with Jenny, me and Susan, me
okay,
and Jody. I don't know. I'm sure lots of
Okay.
other tentacles of
Okay.
conversations have been happening. Yeah.
okay, because that makes sense. So that process would be consistent with, say, what we just talked about, the genocide education, where we saw
Right.
the application,
Exactly.
said, great, background's great.
Yeah.
Go forth and apply. So the expectation and hope is that the system wides will sort of come through the school committee at the same time or before.
Yeah. I mean, keeping in mind that we have a brand new OTL office, so I
Yeah.
just wanna, if they swing and miss, I wanna make sure we, give them grace to, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
Yes.
not thinking about individuals, I'm just thinking about the process generally and sort of, how it is that the school committee kind of knows
Right.
what
That's,
direction.
that's the vision for sure.
Okay. So right now, there's no system wise.
That's my understanding.
Okay,
They all got
thank you.
paused. Yeah.
Thank you.
okay, there's a motion and second. Any other discussion? Andy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes, but I have a question after I go. Came into my mind afterwards.
Well, we'll revote then. Ask your question first.
We're saying acceptance of grant of $19,500. Yet the 19,000 is what's being paid by PSV on the sheet that has the sum. So if that's not grant dollars, we're paying.
No, it's reimbursed. We pay, they reimburse
We
us.
pay,
Yeah,
they reimburse us
Correct.
all the substitute.
the
teachers.
19,516, correct.
And
Or whatever,
whatever.
however much is it spent,
However it ends up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's a reimbursement.
correct. Most grants are all issued on a reimbursement basis, so.
So then along those lines, for 2A, it's 29K, not 70. Is that right?
I think you're probably right, but
Okay,
Betsy, we probably wanna,
Check that tomorrow.
yeah. Thanks for.
All right, any other questions? We have a revote. Andy?
yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Mariah?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. That takes us to our next school committee actions. 3A is the installation of electric vehicle charging stations at Baker, Lincoln and Runkle. Discussion of possible vote to approve, and we have, both Sam and Alexandra here. If we have any questions related, they did provide us with substantive memo. Open it up for,
Can I,
I want to first move approval of 3A.
I'll move approval,
All right, second for Mariah.
Yes.
but with modifications eventually. Can I do that? Or do you want me to amend one?
First, ask your question, and then see if you want to do it.
It's not a question, it's a very long comment / recitation of an email that Alexandra and Sam and I have.
Okay.
Okay. So I asked about the EV charging stations, basically who pays for the electricity, because the material was not in front of us, who pays for electricity. And if it was billed to PSB, and if so, how the revenue is basically how the expenses are being recouped by PSP. And Alexandra said, DPW doesn't pay for electricity, blah, 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 blah. Said how will be reimbursed. Sam wrote this really nice long email. Which Charlie confirmed it, Young or Simmons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna read this. The new stations for Baker, Runkle, and Lincoln would be individually metered so that the electricity usage would be separated from the school's overall bill. That electricity bill will be paid for by DPW out of the recently passed EV revolving fund, up to the amount of the fees collected. However, if the fees do not cover the full electricity bill, the revolving fund will not cover that difference, which can happen at locations with low usage rates. The goal for every location in town is to ensure that the fees charged cover the cost of electricity and the cloud services and warranty plans. If this happens, we can explore increasing the price charged per kilowatt hour. Independent of that whole thing, though, it's not getting charged to PSB. If you're short on an area, it doesn't get like, we're not the second payer, right? Either way, on those three new ones.
So no, that is correct. So if we just established this EV revolving fund in a town meeting, so that's a new revolving fund that hasn't existed. The intention there is that any charges for the electricity, for cloud service plans, for warranties are all coming out of that EV revolving fund. However, what Sam is saying is that in this case, we don't know what the usage would be at these three. If for some reason the electricity bills exceeded what was in the EV revolving fund, then we, DPW, would not cover the difference for those electricity costs.
But no one is asking schools to cover it either, correct?
So then the school, well, either schools or buildings, whoever is responsible for paying those electricity costs is the one who would have to pay
But
the
we
difference.
pay for it through buildings. They take it out of our budget to pay it.
Okay, so then it would be through school's budget for that difference, in that case. Or what Sam was saying is that we could assess depending on the usage and come back and say this needs to be increased to offset the actual usage that we're seeing here.
But that would be going forward. It wouldn't be retroactive. So we would be still responsible for old payments, right?
That's true. I would say that, like this, this is a trial and error when you are opening up a new station. It's just impossible to know, as Alexander said, like what the usage will be. But in terms of like the Driscoll School, for example, further in that email, I explained that we're talking about like there are 3 stations at the Driscoll School and their electricity usage each month is like an average of $800 to $900. So I understand that, the fees collected might be, could be $800 and the electricity bill could be $900. So that $100, would be a hypothetical in this instance.
So right now that's $10,000 when we're like scrambling for budget money. We're like in the couch cushions, like scrambling for quarters. So
Right now, that's
But that would,
$1,000.
but it would be $1,200 because it would only be the $100 difference between the fees collected and the electricity
Maybe.
bill.
But I just like, my point is, we don't know. Driscoll is like much more in the center of town compared to Baker, compared to Runkle.
And that's why my assumption would be that there would be lower electricity bills at these other locations, given that they're going to primarily just be used by the teachers and the principals that have requested them. So if the 3 stations in a center part of town are currently doing $900 a month, then just my best judgment is that the bills would actually be lower for any of these 3 locations.
Okay.
Just because like one school is only getting 1 station and then we're proposing 2 stations for the other 2 schools. So there's fewer stations and likely fewer usage. So therefore the bills will be less.
But I would just point out that for Driscoll, although the net is that, the revenue is accruing to a revolving fund and the cost is accruing to the PSB electrical board. So it's not saying it's $1,200. We're taking a $10,000 hit and some other account is getting a $9,000 credit. So that's not.
So Driscoll, I will say, is one of the questions that you asked, Mariah, was about the metering. And so basically, each of these are for all the 3 new stations that we're talking about. In this case, those will each be metered individually. So we can confirm that can be tracked and billed separately for the usage of those 3. But in the case of Driscoll, I just don't know how that was installed and if it was metered separately. So if it was, then none of that thus far has gone into the EV revolving fund because it doesn't exist. And in fact, everything for the warranty and cloud service plans, which are an additional cost to run these stations, has been covered by DPW. So that has been
But not the electricity if it's metered as part of the building, right?
correct.
Yeah.
It's gone to the general fund to date because the fund, EV revolving fund was not established. So the $900 that we can say in fees per month from the Driscoll School, which have only been in operation for 6 months, has gone to the general fund. That is correct. The reason Alexander and I don't have that answer is we were just not a part of the Driscoll School project.
So my comment was that that I had twofold. The other thing is, so I said that all the stations be individually metered, which we just talked about. We're not clear if Driscoll is or not. And would ask that it be individually metered, which I presume can be done retroactively. I mean, the rest of us, we can all rewire stuff at our house. So I would presume that this can be, but if not, something set up where, as you say, there's some sort of transfer to offset the cost. And then the second point I made was that the signage makes clear, and I'll talk about why you said this can't be, but the signage makes clear that the EV restriction on spots does not apply to PSB staff during the school day. It would be great if they could take advantage, but they shouldn't be prohibited from parking in a space that they would otherwise use, especially if those spots are in the school's transportation plan. Because,
Sorry, can you read that again?
yeah, because
Yeah.
all the schools have transportation plans that have to do with school, like right staff access,
Yeah.
but those spots have been counted. So if there's an EV spot,
Yeah.
it says prohibited from parking here
Yeah.
unless you're, like, that means a teacher who doesn't have an EV spot would not be able to park.
Right, that was on my list of questions.
And so
Answer was.
Alexandra's answer was the EV grant we have obtained to install these stations does require that we put signage in place specifying that the spots are marked for EV cars. However, DPW would leave the enforcement of that policy to each of the schools. There's longer answer, but that's basically enough of it.
DPW leave it force
Yeah.
to the schools, okay. And so how would you envision, or Val, how would you envision, would the enforcement be like a school level or a school policy?
To each of the schools, the enforcement of that policy to each of the schools.
If I may, we did have this conversation with each of the principals when
Uh-huh.
we were on site to get their buy-in, and first they indicated that they had more teachers with EVs than the spots that we're currently discussing. And so, of course, priority would be given to those teachers, but that they understood that those spots were not going to restrict use from.
But it raises a whole bunch of other questions because you're supposed to only be parking in those spots when you're charging.
Right.
So if like, we're gonna say, oh, you have to, hey, teacher, whoever, you have an EV car, great,
You
but
have
like,
2 hours.
you have 2 hours and you
Yeah.
have to go move your car, like, that doesn't make sense given their school day for the most part, right?
That's
So,
actually a question I
Yeah.
had. So
Yeah, and-
how would that, I guess that would have to be worked out also at the.
but the building, basically, it's not enforced by the building principal, or is what you're saying.
Right, we would leave it to the school principals to work with their staff. If these projects move forward, I think that, we could definitely support an email that would go out to all the staff from the principals, like letting them know that this is a new offering to be able to charge your car at work, and that it will be up to them to move their car if needed, but
Yeah, I mean, I would just add, so we're not changing, it's not like these are existing spots that already are at the school. So the school has X number of spots allocated for teacher parking, and so we wouldn't be adding new spots for ICE, internal combustion engine vehicles. It would just be, if you have an EV, this is the spot that you park in and can charge. If you choose not to charge, I would assume that no one on our end is enforcing that, and therefore, if the school also wasn't doing that, then those people would just remain parked there. So it would just be, instead of parking 7 spots down at Baker where, you normally park, you park in the EV spot and charge if you need to charge at that time.
My apologies for interrupting. I need to step away for a minute. Sarah, can you? Sure, I'll take over.
And then the spots are open to the public
after
After
hours.
school.
after hours, and I don't have an electric vehicle, so I don't know how it works. Do you have to pay, like if I did have one and I wanted to charge it?
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
pay.
Yes, correct.
And so then likewise, then on non-school hours, the DPW regulates or deals with with how they're used?
It would just be the same as any other parking rules and regulations, so that's enforced through Brookline PD.
So do people go, like, is the habit that people go and just charge for an hour? Like, what if somebody just doesn't move their car?
So
Or their parents come to visit from New York and they have an electric vehicle and they put their car in the spot.
so they're welcome to use it after hours. I mean, so this is a policy that, again, the Driscoll School is the only example we
Okay.
have, and
Of a school.
of a school project.
Charging that's happening in town hall
Yeah.
that's open to the public in the neighborhood and different
And it
public.
works out, is what you're saying.
I've spoken with the principal at the Driscoll School where we together created what
Okay.
hours and policy
Yeah.
they'd like to see. And so the Driscoll principal was comfortable with it being available to the public after 5 PM. And prior to 7 AM, and we've to date received no complaints from the school about public cars parking
Awesome.
in the school spaces.
And I was also wondering, so there's 3 schools, how many at Baker, how many at Lincoln, how many at Runkle are you conceiving?
So I think it should be in here, but it's one station. I believe at the.
Sorry.
So I think they.
One station at Runkle, and then there are 2 stations at Baker and 2 at Lincoln. And so each station includes 2 charging ports, so it's like a dual port station, so you could theoretically charge 4 cars at once at Baker, 4 cars at Lincoln, and 2 at Runkle.
I think it would actually be very popular. I live in the Baker neighborhood. And unlike Driscoll,
Yeah.
everybody has cars. They have to. I think
Yeah.
it would be. Yeah. Really well.
We tried to look at, we looked at this with 2 lenses. One was offering teachers an opportunity because as with the new Pierce construction and the Driscoll School and even Florida Ridley, that's an amenity that's
Right.
offered to teachers, and we want to support that and also make it a public benefit as well. And so the Baker School is an area of town that doesn't have EV charging near it, and so that would be an opportunity to provide a local benefit.
And sorry, and the teachers, but even when teachers are charging, are they paying?
They're paying 25 cents, they're paying the proposed
Sorry.
25% kilowatt, which again, our intention is to set pricing in a way that maintains the network in a sustainable way, while covering our costs. Like, we're not trying to profit from anyone, we're just trying to provide a public good while covering the town's costs.
So at 25 cents. We're charging, if they charge 7:30 to, the different cars are sliding in because they certainly don't need all the charge. And the issue about when they have to leave their classroom to go out and unplug it and move it, we haven't discussed that, it's a school policy. Any less charging than a full day of charging, we're gonna end up losing money that.
No, there's a number of factors that play into this, but we're not losing money. I mean, these projects are gonna be funded by the grant that we applied for, and then also DPW funds. So when the stations start day one, like no cost to the school, but like we will not be losing money if people aren't charging. It's not like we get. I mean, there are the yearly fees, which I outlined in the email, which are the cloud service plan and the maintenance plan, which come out to be about $1,300 a year, but those are what the DPW will be paying for. So no money lost.
So it's really if you're not using the station and the electricity isn't being utilized, and therefore then we're not collecting any fees and no cost is associated with that.
So are we at a point where we moved something or are we now amending?
The only thing I wonder about is, if we can basically, kind of think of what the amended wording could be. Because the amendment doesn't necessarily tie to the acceptance of the grant. So maybe we can make a separate motion if it's okay. Right, and I don't know if we can, but it's sort of tied to the agenda anyway. Is it okay, Betsy?
It's definitely tied.
tied to the agenda, right? So maybe, but I think that just like, we want to make sure that PSB does not end up having negative financial repercussions from providing this public good alongside DPW.
So I will just say that I think for our purposes, what we're looking for permission on is to accept the grant to install the 3 new stations. I think the other question, and those are all metered separately and are kind of question 1. I think the other question that you're talking about, Mariah, is related to Driscoll. And so I wonder if that's a
Well,
question.
yes and no, because you just said that, for example, say Baker didn't make money and it ran a loss, you weren't sure whether the loss was supposed to be covered by PSB. What I'm saying is we cannot be responsible for covering a loss for an electric vehicle charging station in our parking lot.
Right, but I'm saying if no one's charging there, then there shouldn't be a loss in electricity because
Well,
they're not.
Then we're fine with that, right? But I want it to be said that we're not gonna have a loss on that. Like, if you're wrong and there is a loss, we don't, because you have some sort of level of fixed costs relating to warranty and whatever, that absorbing those costs is not gonna be PSB's responsibility. So I'm happy to have this as a separate motion because I don't want to think the acceptance of the grant. I want you to be able to take it forward to your funder clean. But I want separately there be a motion that's really clear that PSB is not responsible for absorbing any of the losses associated with the EV charging stations on any of it.
Yeah, if I may, this is me, unfortunately just thinking out loud, but I think it's constructive. Because it's a trial and error, right? We can't predict what's gonna happen. You know, as I mentioned to Charlie Young earlier today, if that were to be the case, then that would actually be an indication that maybe 25 cents at these locations is too low. And so if
That's for you to sort out though going forward. I'm saying any loss before that, we don't want to have to be responsible for absorbing the loss of the 25 cents. Like, it'll be great that you balance it, but say this next year you run it at 25 cents and at the end of the year, you're negative $5,000 a Baker. I'm making it up. Like, we do not want to be responsible for that. And you'll crank it up to 35 cents, the problem goes away. Great. But in the meantime, we're not responsible for any of the losses associated with the EV stations. It seems pretty straightforward that like schools shouldn't have to pay for losses on EV charging stations that have nothing to do with schools other than the location.
I hear you. I mean, I think the question is if schools still want to move forward. I mean, part of the reason that we're bringing these projects forward is because we have a grant that's incentivizing the installation of EVs and wanted to look for more opportunities to bring that to other Brookline users. So be that teachers and school staff or Brookline residents in neighborhoods that we don't already have them. As you saw in the memo, we have a lot of publicly accessible EV charging stations. But a lot of those are in public parking lots and areas in North Brookline and not necessarily reaching the schools and certainly not reaching South Brookline. With that being said, the electricity usage at each of those is the biggest driver of what the cost will be. So as right now, we only have one school that has these in place, which is Driscoll. That's our only case study for how it's worked at the schools. With that being said, we could also not install the EV charging stations and then not have to worry about any loss or excessive fees.
When are you required to provide an acceptance of the grant or not?
August.
August 1st, August 31st?
Well, they've August 1st.
When is our next meeting, Betsy?
I mean, we may meet as early as Thursday night if we have that brief meeting.
So is it possible that this gets clarified with Chaz and Melissa about the revolving fund's responsibility to absorb any losses that would be otherwise incurred by PSB?
We can absolutely ask the question. I think that was the question that was asked of Charlie Young today, and that was the answer that Sam summarized in the email of basically the revolving fund will cover anything based off of revenues generated, but should there be any excess usage there, excess fees associated with electricity there, then the revolving fund wouldn't be able to cover whatever that delta gap is.
But I think what we're saying is that that's not an answer that gets us to an easy place. And so we want Charlie to be able to reconsider that. And I'm happy to talk to right back to Charlie in the meantime, and we can get this readdressed by school committee beforehand. But it's important.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
so
great,
not
it's
like
not that we want to tank the projects, it's that we want to make sure that we are having successful EV projects and successful schools.
Sure, so I think that, then, yes, in that case, the people that could answer the finance questions are related to that are not Sam and I, and so it would be a follow-up conversation with, at minimum, Charlie Young, and then possibly Melissa.
Thank you.
So we are going to move on to the approval for the letter of. I'm sorry.
I just want to follow up in the spirit of Mariah is bringing up, and I heard the number $900 a month. But in the context of what? So what I did is I said $900 a month times 10 months, that's $9,000. What, can you explain that? So $9,000 sounds like a lot of money in a school year. So what is that $900 a month?
Well, the question was asked about usage and the, what case study we have. And so Driscoll, like the Driscoll School is the one case study where we're talking about where it's a primarily used for the teachers, like the teachers charge there every day. I'm able to see that. But that it also after hours is provided to the public. And so the question was like, how much are they used? And so I was able to just look at the data from the last 3 months and see that on average, between primarily teachers and a small subsection of the public, that the average monthly fee that was assessed to the users was $900 in 1 month for the electricity that they're using to charge their car.
Paid for by the user?
The user's paying the $900, yeah.
So that has no cost to us.
No, because the electricity is the $900, the fees that have been paid or the electricity that was billed.
The fees.
Okay, so then there's an additional electricity charge, which if those machines are connected to the building, PSB is paying through its utilities account. So someone is accruing fees, but it's not us, and we likely are paying the bill. So that's why I want to get it all. And it sounds like that's been done better. Thank you for this idea for Baker, Runkle, and Lincoln.
Yeah.
But maybe it isn't for just.
That number just made me nervous because I didn't know who was paying for it. That's-
Yeah, that's just a thing. We can see how many people are plugging in for how long every day. And based off of that, we're seeing that at Driscoll, generally, people are paying cumulatively $900 per month to charge there.
If I can add one other thing, I'll also say that the reason these locations were selected were because these schools approached Jose Albuquerque, Joe Albuquerque, sorry, and Joe Albuquerque, and that's why it's been so lovely to work with the principals. They requested this service.
So apologies, and this is now triggering another question for me. Runkle doesn't have a parking lot.
So-
Lincoln has the circle. And I don't know, so
In the back, they have parking.
there's parking in the back, okay.
So Lincoln's in the back, Baker's in the parking lot that you know, and then Runkle's actually a very, the spot where the janitor and the principal park. They have two cars that park back there. It's right next to, I think it's right next to their dumpsters.
Okay.
So that's where their station is going there.
So were the public gonna be able to park next to the dumpster?
So you can pull in there. I think that those will be far less publicly visible, so that's gonna require some, if you want the public to use those, that's gonna require some outreach to the public, like Katie did this year, but those are also stations that, all of these, if you're an EV user, that you look at stations that are publicly available on an app, and so it would say like, those exist in here, so.
So essentially, so the principal, in theory, and so Mr. Brandon
I'm just worried
No,
about
because
time
don't
because it's
even-
5:40.
would
Yeah.
be relinquishing their spot to the EV spot.
I've spoken to the principal and she's supportive of this location
Yeah.
and
Okay,
Yeah, so I'm not sure how they decide who parks there, but whoever it is, it would be an EV user. Or it wouldn't, and they just wouldn't plug it.
Just a general question, I'm not an EV user. How long does it take to get your charge?
it depends on the strength of the station, and so
With the station.
yeah, so,
And on the vehicle.
and on the vehicle, how big battery is, but, for the station, type of stations we're proposing, it would, if you went from 20% to 80%, it would probably be 2.5 to 3 hours.
giving you a couple hundred miles. Right, okay.
So we might have a meeting in a week. You might want to have that conversation in the next few days.
Yeah.
That's what we're leaving this.
Yes.
And now we're going on to 3B, which is the approval of the letter of intent and the system purchase and installation agreement for the solar panels on the Driscoll School roof. And members here have a cover memo in their packet about that. And Alexandra is still available to us, I hope, for some questions. So would anyone like to move this to start us?
I'll move it.
And seconded, and any discussion? Carolyn?
Thanks. And sorry,
I think I'm somewhere else. Not in a good place. You keep having to spend.
I feel bad having.
There is a chair. next to
Okay,
you.
okay, all right.
So am I understanding this correctly, that this would be the first time that the town is purchasing?
The town has purchased EVs, very small systems that are on the roof of the Brookline Health Building and the Potterham Library.
Okay,
Long time ago,
Okay.
back in 2006 and 2010. So
Okay.
in recent history, yes,
Yeah.
this is the first time in,
and then in short, I breezed through the memo. In short, this is a recommendation based on the changing landscape of rebates.
yes.
Okay, and then my understanding of the conversation previously in sort of weighing purchasing versus leasing was the R&M questions. So can we get just a few sentences on how that's gonna work? And also, yeah, and like Charlie Simmons' position on owning in terms of the repair and maintenance. And Andy, you're now the building commission liaison?
Yes.
So were you there for the most recent conversation about this, which I have no idea. About.
I don't recall any.
Okay. And now the project, and is this part of the Driscoll building project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so some investment in solar panels was always part of the project budget.
It was always anticipated the roof was built solar ready. So the intention was that a solar panel PV system would be installed there. And the question I think was, are we leasing or purchasing that system? And so that conversation has, been happening over the last several months.
Yeah.
To lead us to where we are today. But yes, it was always the intention, and the expectation.
So is there a line item in the Driscoll project budget that we borrowed for that covers this, or does this get paid for?
That's my
some
question.
other
I
way?
wasn't clear how it was getting paid for.
So it would be coming out of the Driscoll project budget. And so my understanding is that it would be an extra work order as part of that project budget.
There are like $2.4 million, I think, left over unspent currently. from the Driscoll
Okay.
project.
So it would be for the purchase, and then the R&M is gonna be.
Yeah, so and I will say that the building commission did review this, and said, yes, that's fine. There's money in the budget, like we
Okay.
are okay with this expenditure.
Okay,
Talked to them about that at a couple meetings, but that was
Yeah.
ultimately the decision.
okay,
One of their questions was the same as yours. What about the ongoing
Yeah.
operations and maintenance of these, which I do think is a critical component. And so the expectation is that we would enter into an O&M contract specifically for this system. And we asked select the installer who were
okay,
working with on this, if we were to ask you for an O&M contract, not that we have to go with them, but if we were, what would the average cost of that look like? And so that range, goes up over time as the system ages, but somewhere between $3,900 to $6,600 per year. And so when we looked at the overall financial impact that would have on the project, we took into account an annual O&M cost. So that would include an annual visit by them. That would include, a monitoring system that would allow staff to track and see, is the system working? Is something not producing electricity? All that kind of stuff. So we did take that into account, which was, to your previous point, helpful for Charlie Simmons. And our division, the Sustainability and Natural Resources Division, we're a new division in town, and so we would manage certainly any actual work that needs to happen on the roof. We would have to coordinate with the building department, but the actual day-to-day oversight of those panels, that would be something that our division is doing.
And sorry, because I think you said this, but I just want to confirm my understanding. That the money, that would be covered on an ongoing basis by money that was part of the project forever?
The operations and maintenance? You're asking if operations and maintenance would be covered? No.
No, just.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the operations and maintenance would be paid for by the building department.
Yeah, so, and I think the hope is that we would be able to establish basically from some of the rebate money through the federal rebate or the state rebates that come back, that the question was posed, could we establish some sort of revolving fund where basically those dollars that come in can then be used directly to offset the O&M
Yeah,
cost
yeah.
associated with that. So I think that's something that we're still exploring.
Okay, and so then this approval is, and so I understand there's a few sort of nuts and bolts that you're still refining, but so we're just being asked to approve this directionally.
So we're asking that you'll approve the letter of intent, which
Yeah,
then allows
okay.
Select to go and
Okay.
do the coordination with utility, and then that will give us a final dollar. Because we're trying to move quickly because
Understood.
the
Makes
world, if the dollar total changes for the project, I would come back to school committee and select board for a new vote.
Totally clear. Thank
If
you.
it changes upward, not.
Correct, yeah, if it goes down, then
Yeah.
no.
Then we all cheer.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Yeah, of course.
Seems like we're ready for a vote, so I'm going to go the other direction this time. Donna?
Is there a motion already? Yes, yes, yes.
Jesse?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't hear it. Bob? Angie?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Hopefully I won't be back, but appreciate the support.
Thanks, Alexandra.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your time.
And that adjourns this meeting.
Yeah, item 3C was withdrawn as well by staff. It's not ready yet, so
Correct.
we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you for your-